All right. Hello and welcome back. Allow me to pause this as we are here for a draft lottery here in season 5. Now, we'll get to it in just a second, but do keep in mind that this is just the 8-bit league, just the 8L as it is abbreviated, because the Premier does not have a lottery. So they do have a draft order. We will be showing that draft order, but they don't have a lottery. So that's not. This is just a lottery for the 8L, but we're going to talk about both leagues' draft order. So we'll get there. First of all, focusing on this lottery. As you can see, we have a couple rules on our screen. I don't think I have a milestone to post. No, I'm at 126, so I can't counter that 75 streak from Mrs. Links. I just have to say, but trust me, it's higher. But as you can see, we do have some rules, or just some kind of descriptions of what's going on. So first of all 14 teams have even odds. There were some ways that you could have potentially weighted it, but none of them are none are reasonable given that this is a completely new format with a lot of new teams that it's kind of hard to try to go back and weight it and do whatever. But there you go. So this is a full lottery, completely random, no, like in the past, because it's been based on placement, you've had like 25%, 20 down to like 2%. We don't have any of that. Everyone has 7% to start, and then, of course, it'll scale technically up as more teams get eliminated. But there you go. Then the second one, Kaipo Monday. The second one is that the first spin we do is for the 14th pick. So in the past, the odds have been that the teams who performed worse had higher odds, and therefore the first spin was for the first pick. However, especially given the fact that we got a chance to reset, we're flipping it. So that you got to keep watching and we get more suspense. The first spin we do is 14th, then 13th, then 12th, etc., until we are left with 2 teams left. At that point, we kind of flip, because whoever the spin lands on gets the first pick. And then the team who doesn't get landed on at all gets second. So we basically go, every spin result is 14th to 3rd until there are 2 teams left. Then we flip it, and who it lands on gets first. We'll explain that. It's not confusing. You'll get it. Second of all, the lottery specifically decides the order for round 1. The draft snakes through the second and third rounds, and so the third round will look identical to the lottery we do here, but the second round will be the opposite. So we are just doing the lottery for the first round, and then the future rounds will snake based on this lottery. Okay, so basically, we're spinning a wheel. Who it lands on will be the 14th pick, and then every spin after that will be 1 pick earlier, with 1 less team it can land on, obviously. Pretty simple, pretty self-explanatory. But what teams are we lotterying? First broadcast of the season, might as well take a look because we got plenty of new faces, plenty of touched up faces, as we got the Bedford Bulldogs moving over to a more gold, or I believe bronze and green scheme. Boston, Buffalo, and Chicago, as well as Daytona, all familiar, although Chicago, of course, the only returning representative of the old Prism League, so hoping to hold down that fort. After that, we got Druid City and the Grand Rapids Gamers, as well as the La Vista Vagabonds, who are new faces. Then the Loudon Lynx, a returning name. The Luxor Pharaohs, just like Bedford, who got a new coat of paint, also flipping their colors, now green and gold. Then the Michoacan Monarchs, so same brand, same colors, but a new location. Then the Saskatoon Fusion and Stowe Summit, both new. And the Vancouver Void, a returning face with the same manager. So Every manager is a player we have seen before, although some of them, specifically Aiden, I believe, someone we have not seen manage before. So we'll see. As we can, I think, from that, go ahead and talk about Premier briefly. Again, we don't have that much Premier to do, but their draft is 2 rounds because they have 3-player teams and all of them are playing managers. Therefore, they only need 2 more players to round out their roster, and they will get them in a 2-round draft. Now, as it will say on the graphic, the Premier draft had to be handled a little bit more carefully and a little bit differently. Because the 2 main differences are that the managers in the 8-bit league are, I would say, a little bit more similar, although in saying that, that is a large generalization because there are standouts like Chance. But more importantly, number 2, the 8-bit league has ratings. And so ratings limit your roster construction and mean that every team should be roughly equal because there are limits on how many players of a certain caliber you can pick up, and it becomes just about chemistry at that point. But the Premier League does not have ratings. And so it becomes a lot harder to tier the players or make sure the rosters are even, especially given the fact that the managers are very different. There is a pretty large range. And so what has happened with Premier is that ownership has decided a draft order. I don't know, Halio. So what I've been told is that the players in the league don't want ratings, and therefore there are no ratings. It's also a little bit awkward because there are 7 people who could probably be the highest rating, but I think it would be simple enough to do. I have been told it is not wanted, and therefore it is not done. I don't know. That's where I'm at. So, where we are at is that they have locked in a draft order, and then it does not snake. I don't know, Halio. I don't know. I don't know how they've done everything. But from what that's where I'm at. Okay. There you go from Bacon. Because Bacon did mention to me there are 7 SSLs, and so if you did 6 players per tier, that gets kind of awkward. I still think it's probably worth it to do it. And one team could be a little bad, but still. But if ratings aren't wanted, they won't be had. And given that there's still time before draft, that means this could change. And if it does, and there is then a lottery, it would be probably off stream. But either way, with where we currently stand, this would be the Premier draft order. That's where we'd be. But we already have 2 people in the chat who seem maybe counter to the idea of not having ratings. And so, but with where we stand, this would be the draft order, and it does not snake, which would mean this would be the round 1 draft order, and it would also be the round 2 draft order. Which, Halio, would then mean you have 6th and 12th. Not 2 in a row. Because they have decided, basically what they did is they said because there are no ratings, and there is such a disparity in the level of the managers, they ordered it by from what I understand, they ordered it by the reverse skill of the managers. So that Halio, as the best manager, would have the last pick. To basically say, should have the worst player of the first round, because he is by far the best manager. Then LA2, then Lemon above that, then Mincy, then Jam, then Kilo with first. So that's where we're currently at for Premier. This is the draft order. That both rounds look like this. So, I don't know, but that's where we're at. And so, again, if we get updates, if we get anything changed, you'll hear about it in the Discord. And if you're not in the Discord, then you'll at the very least see on draft day. But yeah, if anything changes, you'll find out. This is where we stand, I think, mainly due to the lack of ratings. So there we go. Then, back to the 8-Bit League, because we're 10 minutes in. I don't think there's much else to stall about. We got a wheel. It has a bunch of teams on it. Now, I am going to have to do a little bit of working just because, if you notice, this doesn't count. This does not count. Actually, no. I'm not going to do it. I was going to do an example spin to show something, but I'm just going to show it on the first spin. So I'm not going to spin for meaning nothing. But as you can see, we have the 14 teams all on this wheel. And it's pretty simple, as we said. The first spin here is going to be for the 14th pick in the draft. And by the way, we do have a draft board that I will be updating and showing between spins. But the first pick, or the first wheel result, will be for the 14th pick. And then from there, we're going to work down. So that'll become clearer as we go. But why don't we go ahead and do the first spin of the lottery? So this is going to be for the 14th pick in the 8-Bit League draft, which is the last of the first round. However, it will also give the first of the second round. So there are the upsides and downsides. So let's see where it may land. It would be so funny if it's Wico. It would just be so funny. I can unmute this. You can hear it. So it will instead be going to the Buffalo Lake Effect and Lord Neo. By the way, what I was going to show is if I click remove, it just doesn't. So now what I need to do is go to the wheel on the other end, remove them, and just go ahead and update the wheel. But while I am doing that, we can also go and add this to the board. So there you go. 14th pick will go to Lord Neo and the Buffalo Bull, or nope, what? I'm combining teams, don't worry about it. And the Buffalo Lake Effect. With that now, I have the wheel updated, and so we can go again. So that's what we're going to do. I can't remove through the wheel, or this would be a lot faster, so I just have to create a new link every time. So... That's so funny, by the way. That's actually... it didn't give him 14th. It's not 14th. It held off the minimum amount, but it did hold off. It did, in fact, hold off. Give me 1 second again to get the wheel updated, as that is very funny. So it did not save Wico all the way. It did, at the very least, wait one pick. But there we go. And so now we spin again for number 12. So 12 teams left on the board. All of them getting a little bit earlier and between Luxor and the Monarchs, but it will be the Michoacan Monarchs, managed by Panda, going at number 12. We'll see if that's enough for him to nab Honda, although actually that's been his classic. I don't know. Obviously, rating's not public yet. I'm not sure if that'll be possible, but at the very least, that is where he picks, so he can begin to make his plan on Monday. Let me get them removed from this wheel, and then we will do the next pick as we continue on down the list. Down to just 11 teams remaining, starting to become a little bit smaller of a crop. But who will get knocked down next, as the 11th pick will be looks like the Saskatoon Fusion, managed by Chance. So probably the best manager in the 8-bit league. We'll be looking for an A in his first round, because assumedly he'll be S. And so we'll have plenty of time to see what the board looks like. Of course, assumedly, not going to be too many people picking A's in front of him. So still will have mostly the pick of the whole field, but still we will see as we then go down next, moving on to the second column. Did I not switch? I got to switch. There you go. Moving on to the second column, we will get ready for the 10th pick. Did that not? Hold on. Did I not do this right? Gulp. Okay, wait, hold on. Huh. Wait a minute. What? It didn't change my link. Okay, there we go. I think this should be good now. There we go. Okay. We're good. All right. Pick number 10. See, Wiko, you didn't get the last pick. You, in fact, did not get the last pick. But either way, let's see who will get the 10th pick as we move on here. So into single digits, as it will be Luxor and Bacon falling off the board at number 10. Starting out the second column a little bit closer to the top, but maybe not as close as you'd want. Although, again, because it's a snake draft, definitely still benefits to getting that earlier pick in the next rounds, depending on who you're looking for in the first. Always becomes a little bit of strategy on, are you looking for that earlier pick to try to snag that player you want, or do you want to pick a little bit later so that you have your second player faster as well? Either way, on to the final 9 here. A lot of new faces still on the board. Let's see who drops off next. It's a little bit finicky. By the way, it says click to spin. I have to double click and in the right spot. But either way, next it looks like will be the Druid City Kings, I believe managed by Young Wild Boy. I'm also testing my knowledge of the new managers because I don't have it pulled up anywhere, but I do believe that is the case. I have done enough work with the teams to know that at this point, as we can flip over. So DRC, Druid City, getting added to the list. And again, give me 1 second just to get them off the wheel. And so we can move on, as we are now into the top 8, would be the quarterfinals of a bracket. But of course, it is not a bracket as we do move on then. Pick number 8, only 8 teams left. Again, Grand Rapids, La Vista, and Stowe, all new teams on the list, but outnumbered by the returning teams, even if Bedford have rebranded, and it's almost them, but instead it'll be Boston here at number 8. Of course, a returning manager from Pitcop there, made the finals last season, but only the 1 championship to his belt so far. He'll be looking to find another one in the newly crowned 8-bit league, but again, a middling pick in the first round for him. We'll see what he can make of it once we get into the draft. But for now, only 7 teams remaining, as it's time to get. We're getting closer. We're getting a lot closer to those late picks. What's your question, Halio? What's your question? See, Halio, there are a couple things. I mean, they can talk about it, but I think generally their strategy was, because there are no ratings, we do not want the best manager to end up with better players than the other tiers. Basically trying to implement ratings without the players themselves actually being rated. And so, given that you are better than LA2, they want you to pick later than him. And same with the first 4. Now, my suggestion would have been maybe you could lottery the first 4 since they're more similar, and maybe LA2 and Halio since they're more similar. But they just decided we're going to order everything. So they just picked the order of skills, sorted it down, and it's locked for both rounds. So there you go. Halio is weird. It's tough, but I think generally you are. But within that team and whatever, it was more even. Either way, though, we will move on to the spin for the 7th pick. So let's see who the final 6 may be, as the 7 will be Vancouver. By the way, that was not intentional, and I hate it, but it will be the Void falling at the 7th pick in the 8-bit league draft. So there you go, almost 2 columns fully filled in. Now only 6 teams left on the board. And Cozy, definitely a scary one to be up this high. I think at this point, Cozy and Koa, I want to say the 2 strongest managers left on the board. So both of them at this point, pretty confident they can get their player. Both going to be looking for A tiers. I don't know, Cozy maybe around that SA line, might still be looking for an S. If so, then he definitely wants to climb as high as possible. But I think at this point, Koa especially feeling pretty good about where he is at. Just allow me to get the board or the wheel updated, and we can move on in to our final 6 here. It's been close to you a lot, Lynx, but it has not landed on you. Let's see about this time as we roll for the 6th pick. It looks like it will not be Bedford, and it will instead be Loudon. So it will be Lynx, but not the manager, instead the team, as Loudon will fall off the board at number 6, the last team in the 2nd column, and that means we are on to our final 5. So all of these teams at the very least picking plenty early, but who can be the earliest? Who can continue to climb? Only 5 teams, some big pizza slices left over now. And let's see where it lands as we go once more here. Opposite side of Bedford, and it looks like it'll be Stowe, the Summit. Like I said, I believe our only new manager to the 8-bit league, as it is Aiden managing this team. But we'll see what he can do with the Summit, as he will have the 5th pick of the draft. Was our only green representative until just a few days ago. Bacon ended up rebranding his team to be a darker green. But either way, still a very unique color the 8-bit league has not seen before, which of course I appreciate. As we are down, though, 4 teams left. Koa, of course, a former Prism player who's taking up managing. Did end up managing the later part of last season with Arcadia, but generally has not been a manager that much. But then Cozy on the other side, so close to contending last season. The Bulldogs trying to be a dark horse. And then the Grand Rapids Gamers, I believe, managed by Bussin, formerly a manager of the Madison Monarchs, who didn't have the most success. So he's looking to turn that around here. But let's see where we go. What is going on in the chat, bro? What is happening in the chat? All right. But why don't we at least lock in our top 3, as the 4th pick of the draft will be going over. We talked about him a lot. It'll be the Bedford Bulldogs. So close to La Vista, but it just barely crosses that line. And so Bedford finally fall off the board. One close call too many, but still a strong pick, sitting at number 4. And that does, in fact, leave us now with only 3 teams left. And it's cool colors across the board as we have 2 purples and a blue remaining in Daytona and Grand Rapids and La Vista. Still getting used to the new names a little bit, but hey, we have them. Links, probably. Again, I don't know all the ratings, or at least they aren't public, so I don't know exactly if Cozy is going to be an S or an A, but most likely, at the very least, Bussin's going to get an S. Koa will not. Cozy, I don't know. So you'll get second or third. So you'll have pretty open picks. But either way, why don't we figure out who will be third and who will make it to the quote-unquote finals of our lottery as we move on here? Who will pick third? It looks like it will be La Vista as the Vagabonds fall off the board. Another Prism manager, I believe the only one outside of Chance. So definitely plenty early enough here for Koa and the Vagabonds as they will end up at number 3. And again, we talked about this earlier, but just to clarify, because we are down to 2 teams remaining, to keep a little bit of the stakes in this wheel spin, up to this point, the wheels have scaled in order so that it has been 14th, 13th, 12th, etc., all the way up to 3rd. Now it flips. The team that this spin lands on will be the first pick. And the team it does not land on will be second. So again, between these 2 managers, definitely in different skill brackets, so very likely both going to be getting their target either way, but it might matter for the later rounds, picking earlier in the 3rd when teams are a lot more figured out, or late in the 2nd when you're looking for your next player. Let's see who will get the first overall pick of the Season 5 8-bit league draft as we click spin. Where will it land? It looks like it's leaning Grand Rapids, and there it will settle. So the Grand Rapids gamers take the first overall pick and slot Daytona into second. Now, for now, hold on. We can't make this too easy. Hold on. I simply must, right? Like, I simply must. This is a requirement. We can't stop without doing this. We simply cannot. This is required. Right? Like, where will it land? Where will it land? It spins around. Ooh, pretty close to the logo as Daytona, actually pretty much on the logo. The Daytona Coastline Control will take the second pick. I'm shocked. A lot of options on that one, but they do manage to just barely get it. And so our draft board is complete. Now again, this will snake. So this is the round 1 draft order, but round 2 is the opposite, and then round 3 will be the exact same as this. So again, ratings will be released on Monday, and so make sure you are keeping track of the Discord then, because as much as it is a list, was made by the owners, and is in a decent place, they are looking for feedback. And so you can look at it, you can start to plan your draft, or if you see a rating that is clearly wrong, then you can point it out and it might get fixed. We have 2 weeks before draft that I think the plan was the weekend of, actually 3 weeks, because the plan was the weekend of the 5th and 6th of September, Labor Day weekend. So there we go. What do you mean, Lemon? Like, what do you mean, Lemon? I just, Shade, I just don't get what he means by that. Like, I'm just confused. Like, yeah, that's what the lottery did. Okay, Bacon. Bacon is not holding back, but yeah, I think an interesting order. I think, um, as was mentioned in the chat, it is very interesting that how it always ends up that, of course, the managers aren't all even with each other. And so they will be rated in different places. And so they will have different needs for their roster. Now, anyone rated A, B, C will, of course, be looking for their S. But specifically where it matters is with managers like Koa and Chance, who are probably going to be S tier, they are looking for their A tier. And so to win for Koa, not that he's first, but that he is third, well, Saskatoon are down in 11. And so those are probably the only two teams grabbing an A tier in the first round, and Koa gets to pick before him. So he gets to pick any of them he wants. In the same way, Grand Rapids, managed by Bussin, probably, again, looking for an S. He gets that. Cozy maybe also looking for an A, so might be one snatching that away from Koa. But either way, well, no links. Bussin again, I don't remember all of them. They aren't public. They'll be released on Monday. You can look then. You can plan then. If you have any problems, you can point them out then. Last season, people were very quick to critique the ratings, and of course, they're a lot more generalized this season because they are just letters. But with that said, there is definitely room for problems. And yes, Cozy, people are rated S, A, B, C, and you're allowed one of them on each team. So each roster will have an S, an A, a B, and a C. And so the managers who already are those letters are looking for everything other than themselves. And again, that'll all be released on Monday. So now that we have it finalized, another quick look at the Premier Draft order as it currently stands, with New York, managed by Kilo, Point Pleasant by Jam, Seoul by Mincy, Houston by Lemon, the American Soldiers by LA2, and then Hanoi by Halio, one of only 2 returning teams in that league with both Hanoi and New York. Then over in the 8-bit league, 14 picks, a much longer list to read through. Boomer, you still need to get Boss to register. I think you also need to get Wolf to register. Did he? Okay. I don't stalk the registration list. So that's fair. So they'll get rated. That might shake things up because, of course, they're trying for equality across the ratings, which, by the way, is a mentality change. That in the initial ideation stage for the league, they said that they wanted 1 S tier per tier. And I will say, they have switched off that. So now every ranking, I think I said that wrong, by the way. 1 S per team was the original plan, but they have now shifted. So now every rating has the same, and so there are more S than teams, meaning there will be free agents, which basically just means that if an S randomly retires, one team isn't just screwed because there are no other S's. But, with that said, draft order. Grand Rapids, managed by Bussin, then Daytona by Cozy, La Vista by Koa, Bedford by Lynx, Stowe by Aiden, Loudon by Pinky, Vancouver by Corinth, then Boston by Pit Cop, the Druid City Kings by Young Wild Boy, the Luxor Pharaohs, managed by Bacon, and then the Saskatoon Fusion, managed by Chance, the Michoacan Monarchs by Panda, then the Chicago Inferno by Wiko, and finally, rounding out the first round, the Buffalo Lake Effect, managed by Lord Neo. So there you go. That is how both league drafts will look. Now, again, as far as your timeline, that does it for the lottery. These will be posted in the Discord, all of that. Next step is on Monday. Ratings will be released. So at that point, managers can start to build their draft plans, and players can start to look at the ratings and be like, do these make sense? Then after that, in the next coming weeks, there will be scouting scrims. Of course, managers can always set up their own that don't have to be streamed, but I believe the plan is to have a couple league organized ones as well, which might be streamed. So make sure to keep an eye out for that. Then again, the current plan is Labor Day weekend, the weekend of September 5th, 6th. That Friday is the 4th. Will be when the drafts are. Then one preseason week. Season begins with week 1 on September 13th. And that is the same for both leagues. So, with all that said, I do believe that is everything we need to cover here. So thank you to everyone who tuned in for the draft lottery. I do want to check, but I believe this is faster than the lotteries we've had in the past. In part because I believe this is the first one I'm doing alone, but also in part because we're only doing one league, and it is generally just simpler. As I'm stalling a little bit, I am scrolling back on the league YouTube just to be sure. Yep, the season 4 lottery was an hour long. I bet I can find a playlist for season 3 instead. And the lottery was an hour long. And then I can check on season 2. It should be, I think we did a lottery in season 2, right? Might be harder to find though. We're going to see if we can. I'm going to try. So we'll see. But we are sitting about half of that length. So that's not bad. Actually, we might not have. If we did, it's not on the YouTube. We might not have done a lottery, which fair enough. But at the very least, the 2 we did do, season 3 and season 4, were both an hour long. We made it out in a half an hour. So thank you to everyone who tuned in. There are your draft orders. Again, they will be posted in the Discord. And then again, watch out for ratings on Monday and everything else that will follow. Either way, that does it for now. We'll see you back in just a little bit as Season 5 continues to get underway.